Hope you can see on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Uh, at any point, if the connection gets disrupted, please tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is a topic in the core course 3 of your honors syllabus. So this is the second unit of your core course 3. So the topic goes like, the entire unit is named as income determination in the short run, the simple Keynesian model in a closed economy. The main references for this are Dornbusch and Fisher and Starts. The name of the book is Macroeconomics, and I have taken some parts from Branson, Macroeconomic Theory and Policy. So these are the main two references I have used to communicate to you. Now, the first topic in your macroeconomics syllabus is national income accounting. Uh, I think you are aware of the basic identities of national income and the basic concepts on which they are based, but still I'll do a bit of a recap so that you understand it more clearly. That is, you understand income determination more clearly. So we start with output. Now, output can be defined from two sides. One, the production side, the other, the demand side. Now, what do we mean by the production side? We try to say that the production is done by the factors of production. In return, they get a remuneration. For example, payments to workers as wages, interest on capital and dividend. On the demand side, we find that the different sectors of the economy undertake some purchases. These are represented in the demand side. So output can be defined from two sides, one, the production side, and the other, the demand side. As per accounting, at equilibrium, output measured via demand is equal to output measured via production. So whatever output we are measuring from the demand side, that should be equal to the output we are measuring from the production as well. Output typically measures GDP. Now, what is GDP? I think you know. That is, it is the value of all final goods and services produced within a country over a particular period of time. I stress here, we take the value of all final goods and services. That means in the entire production process, there may be many stages. That is, in case of production of bread, first there is processing of flour. First there is the flour part. If we think that production of bread takes place in two stages, then we do not include the value of flour that goes into the production of bread. We just take the value of the bread. So we always take the value of final goods and services. We have to know about where it is produced. That is a particular country. our GDP is different from the GDP of US, that we all know that. So whenever we talk about GDP, we mean GDP of a country. And another thing, the period of time, it may be a year. Usually we can take a year or a quarter of an year, like that. So the time period has also to be mentioned. Now, the production side of the economy, what does it do? It transforms inputs such as labor, capital into output, that is GDP. Now, inputs refers to the factors of production, and payments to these factors are referred to as factor payments. The terms output and income are used interchangeably in macroeconomics. But the question that arises in our mind, once we are saying income, another time we are saying output, are these same or are they equivalent? The answer is surely no. Firstly, in the production process, we use capital. Capital wears down over time while it is being used in the production process. So from GDP, we deduct or subtract the value of depreciation to get net domestic product. But net domestic product is not national income. To get national income, what do we have to do? From net domestic product, we have to minus the value of taxes paid by the businesses. That is, national income national income is equal to net domestic product minus indirect business taxes. Now, what are these business taxes? Taxes on sales, property, production, etc. So these have to be subtracted from net domestic product to get national income. So while coming from GDP to national income, firstly we have to deduct depreciation and then indirect business taxes, then only we can get national income. We'll come to know about it later, that in a simple economy, we take these to be equal and proceed with our analysis. Now we come to the components of demand. I'm pretty sure that you are well aware of this national income identity, which is done in Unit 1 of this course. So here, what do we find? Y, or income, is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. We will say that on the right hand side, we have the components of demand. Firstly, we have consumption, C, then investment, I, government spending, G, and net exports, NX. Now, consumption spending by households include purchases of goods and services by the household sector. What purchases do they include? They include spending on durables like cars, refrigerators, television sets, etc., and also on non-durables like food. And also services like the medical services, the banking services, the teachers, the services of the teachers, lawyers, etc. So we find that consumption includes purchases of goods and services made by the household sector. Now we come to investment spending. Who does the investment spending? The firms do the spending. What is investment? It is addition to the physical stock of capital, that is building machinery, construction of factories, addition to firms, inventory, etc. So here we are talking in terms of addition to physical stock. That means if I have a machine, that is capital in my production process. When do we have investment? When we acquire another machine. That addition to the physical stock of capital is known as investment. Now we have mentioned another term, that is inventory. What are inventories? Inventories are unsold stock that the firms have produced but are unable to sell them. That part is known as the inventory. Now, households building up of inventories is considered to be consumption. Suppose in this time of crisis, we have a tendency, we are fearing that there may be a lockdown in a couple of days or maybe after a week. So we have a tendency of buying more and keeping them in our house. So instead of buying one butter, packet of one butter, we buy two. Instead of buying 5 kgs of flour, we buy 10 kgs of wheat flour. So this is not included in inventories. This will be included in consumption. Although when we have new home constructions, that is a part of our what? Investment. So when we are talking in terms of inventories, households building up of inventories are considered as consumption and not investment. So it will be included in C and not I. Now, gross investment is included in GDP measure, which is net investment plus depreciation. We know what depreciation means. We have just learnt about it. So, gross investment is included in GDP measure, which is net investment plus depreciation. Now, we come to government spending, the third component of demand, government spending. Now, what is government spending? Government spending is government purchases of goods and services. It includes items such as national defense expenditures, cost of road paving by the state and local governments, and salaries of government employees. These are the expenditures or spending made by the government. Government also makes transfer payments. Now, what are transfer payments? Transfer payments are payments made to people without their providing any current service in exchange. For example, social security and unemployment benefits. So, since there are no current production associated with these payments, transfer payments are not included in our GDP. So, government expenditure has in it as components, transfers, and purchases. We come to the final component of demand, which is foreign demand or net exports, as it is represented in a national income accounting identity. So net exports is what? Exports minus imports. When foreigners purchase goods we produce, their spending adds to the demand for domestically produced goods. So this should be added to our GDP. Correspondingly, that part of our spending that purchases foreign goods has to be subtracted from the demand for domestically produced goods. Accordingly, the difference between exports and imports is called net export. And this net export is a component of the total demand for our goods. This net exports can be greater than, less than, or equal to 0. Is it clear up till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I hope you can see on your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We can see.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we come to a simple economy. Assume national income equals GDP. So the differences we had said that GDP minus depreciation minus indirect business taxes is national income. We know this, but for this analysis, we assume national income equals GDP, and thus you use the terms income and output interchangeably. We assume a closed economy with no public sector. That means we are assuming away G as well as NX. So our output expression will be Y is equal to C plus I. Only two things can be done with income. The income the individuals receive, with that income, two things can be done. That is, they can either consume the income or save. National income may be expressed as in equation 2, where S is private savings. So Y is equal to C plus S. This is by definition, so Y is always identically equal to C plus S. From 1 and 2, we can get C plus I is identically equal to Y, or income output, which is identically equal to C plus S. Now we can do a bit of rearranging to get I is equal to Y minus C is equal to S, or investment is equal to savings. Now we incorporate the government as well as the external sectors. So the aggregate demand will now have component G, that is government expenditure, investment expenditure I, taxes that are paid by the individuals to the government, and foreign trade, that is NX. Each of these is assumed to be autonomous. What does autonomous mean? They do not depend on this model. That is, if Y, that is output or income, is our independent variable, then G, I, TA, NX do not depend on Y. Each of these is assumed to be autonomous, implying that they are independent of income and are determined outside the model. The Keynesian model of income determination develops the theory of aggregate demand. It assumes that prices do not change at all and that firms are willing to sell any amount of output at the given level of prices. What does it imply? It implies that the AS curve, or the aggregate supply curve, is flat. Now we come to the aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is equal to all the components of their demand added together. That is C plus I plus G plus NX. Now, output is at equilibrium level when the quantity of output produced is equal to the quantity demanded. This is the most sensible concept that we have learned from the beginning of our uh, program. So output is at its equilibrium level when the quantity of output produced is equal to the quantity demanded. Thus, an economy is at equilibrium output when that Y should equal aggregate demand. And what is aggregate demand equal to? C plus I plus G plus NX. So what do we have? When aggregate demand is not equal to output, then we do not have equilibrium. That implies unplanned inventory investment or disinvestment. Now, what is this? Yes?
Can you show this on graph?
Of course, I'll do a bit later. So when AD is not equal to output, there is unplanned inventory investment or in disinvestment. So unplanned inventory investment is equal to Y minus AD when IU is unplanned additions to inventory. Now, if this IU is greater than 0, that means that the firms are producing more than what is being demanded. So, firms cut back on production until output and AD are in equilibrium again. As you were saying that you want to see it diagrammatically, before going into diagrams, we have to learn about Keynesian consumption function. We all know that consumption is the largest component of aggregate demand. Consumption is not constant in our model, but it increases with income. The relationship between consumption and income is described by the consumption function. If C is the consumption and Y is the income, the consumption function is C is equal to C bar plus small cy. Now, C bar is autonomous consumption, that is when Y is 0. What is the level of consumption? That is given by C bar. That is known as subsistence level of consumption. Everyone needs it to survive. And what is C? It is marginal propensity to consume. That is with the unit increase in income, by how much does the consumption change? So this will give us the slope of the consumption function. The intercept of equation 8 is the level of consumption when income is 0. This is greater than 0 since there is a subsistence level of consumption. I hope you know the meaning of subsistence level. That is the minimum level of consumption needed to survive. No one can survive at a consumption level below this. So this is known as the subsistence level of consumption. Now, the slope of equation 8 is known as the marginal propensity to consume. What does it imply? The increase in consumption per unit increase in income. That is dC by dy. Now we come to the diagram. Here we find the consumption function. This is our consumption function, and OC bar is the level of autonomous consumption. That is, when income is 0, we consume this much this much. Now, C is the slope of this line. Now, here we find another line. This is the 45-degree line. This is an important tool to get the equilibrium level of income. Why is it so important? You take any point on the 45-degree line, the x value is equal to the y value. So on this line, all x's are equal to y's. Now what is our y here? Components of demand. Here we are considering consumption function. So y is consumption, and what is x here? It is income or output. So 45-degree line tells us that aggregate demand is equal to income or output. We will need this 45-degree line while determining the income. Now, what we have to see in this figure, another thing that we have to note in this figure, since this line has a slope of 1, now this line is flatter than 45-degree line. So from here also we find that though the slope is positive, since C is greater than 0, what does C greater than 0 imply? That with an increase in income, the consumption is going to increase. But C is less than 1. So what does that imply? When income increases by 1 unit, consumption increases by less than 1 unit. So the slope of this consumption function is less than 1. So here we have, we try to collect some facts here which we have discussed earlier. Income is either spent or saved, which implies any theory that explains consumption is equivalently explaining the behavior of savings. Because you know Y, you know C. Automatically, if S is identically equal to Y minus C, which is known as the budget constraint, then automatically we know the shape and position of S once we know the shape and position of C. The consumption function in 8 together with 9, which we call the budget constraint, implies a savings function. The savings function relates the level of savings to the level of income. Substituting the consumption function of equation 8 into the budget constraint of equation 9 is the saving function like this. S, Y minus C, we know. For C, we substitute the consumption function, that is Y minus C bar minus small cy. Now, if we collect terms, what do we get? Minus C bar plus 1 minus Cy. Our consumption function was C bar plus Cy. So here our savings function will be minus C bar plus 1 minus Cy. Because if Y is our total income, we are either consuming or saving. So marginal propensity to consume plus marginal propensity to save must equal 1. Saving is an increasing function of the level of income because the marginal propensity to save is equal to 1 minus C is positive. Since C is less than 1, 1 minus C is positive. So saving function is also an increasing function of income, which implies as savings increase, as income increases, savings also increase. Now we incorporate government sector as well as foreign trade. Now, when we include government sector, then we do not take only income. We bring in the concept of disposable income. Now, consumption will depend on how much income the people have at their hands to spend. So, disposable income is nothing but y minus TA plus TR. Why is it so? People pay taxes from their income, so their disposable income decrease by the amount of taxes paid, but government pays transfer payments, so this will add to the amount of income people have at their disposal to spend. So our consumption function changes a bit. Now consumption function is no longer dependent only on income but on disposable income. So we can write C is equal to C bar plus marginal propensity to consume into disposable income. Now that is equal to C bar plus C into Y plus TR minus TA. Now, aggregate demand now becomes what? The C changes. So, C becomes this. C bar plus C Y minus TA plus TR plus I bar plus G bar plus NX bar. Remember, when we put a bar on these, it implies that these are not dependent on the system. These are autonomous and fixed for the model. So, we have something like this, where we have collected all the terms which do not vary with the level of income and put them in within this square brackets and just see why outside the square bracket. So we have, if we say that the entire value of the square brackets can be represented as A bar, we have the aggregate demand function as A bar plus CY, where A is independent of the level of income or autonomous. Now, the aggregate demand function of equation 16 can be shown in figure 2. Here what we are doing, we know again look at this equation very carefully. Here this is constant and this varies with the level of income, and the slope of this equation is still C. So what we are doing, we are adding the entire, our consumption function was C bar plus CY. We are adding the entire other components which are constant to that C bar. So here, now C bar has changed a bit because we have introduced the concept of disposable income here. So the subsistence level of consumption is this much, and to this we had a consumption function of this nature. So to this we add I bar, G bar, NX bar. That means the vertical distance between them remains constant whatever the level of income, because these do not depend on the level of income. So whatever be the level of income, their values remain the same, I plus G plus NX. So we vertically add the values for each level of income and get an aggregate demand function of this nature, which is just a vertical shift of the consumption function by the amount of I bar plus G bar plus NX bar, and with the same slope as the consumption function. Now, part of the aggregate demand is independent of the level of income or autonomous. But aggregate demand also depends on the level of income, which implies increases with the level of income because consumption demands increases with income. The aggregate demand schedule is obtained by adding vertically the demands for consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports at each level of income. At the income level Y0, in the above figure, the level of aggregate demand is AD0. Now we come to the determination of income, equilibrium level of income. So here, what do we find? We find that where this aggregate demand curve intersects the 45-degree line, we get the equilibrium level of income and output. Why? Because at this level, income and output is equal to aggregate demand. For instance, if we assume that aggregate income is lower than this equilibrium income Y0, what will happen? We have the aggregate demand as this much. But how much is the supply? Supply is this much. Supply is can be obtained from the 45-degree line here. But demand is more. That means unplanned inventories are falling down. That means that producers will have to increase output. This process will go on until the equilibrium level of output Y0 is once again achieved. If the output is greater than the equilibrium level of output, where aggregate demand is equal to equilibrium output or income, what happens that there is a stockpiling of inventories that implies the producers are unable to sell what they are producing, and that means that unplanned inventories are increasing, so they will cut back production. You can see the arrows this way. Cut back production until they reach the Y0 level of output. So at equilibrium, we have aggregate demand is equal to income or output, and any deviation from this aggregate demand, this equilibrium income will bring us back to this equilibrium income. That is, if we are here, somewhere here, if our level of income is somewhere here, we increase, the producers increase output,